Welcome back, everybody. I'm Richard.
And I'm Megan. But
And
it's not just Richard. It's Richard with the half marathon under his belt.
hey, I'm going to show it off. I'm
Yes.
going to show it off again.
Yeah.
Richmond Half Marathon, first
Amazing.
6 years. And it was a lot of fun. A little painful, but a lot of fun.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And so I want to let's talk about values.
Mhm.
And when we first started this, I remember you talking about, you had a values exercise that you do with your clients.
Mhm.
And I was really intrigued by that. And I want to dive into that more today with you. And so, but let's take a step back and talk about the basics. And what are values really?
Yeah.
What do you think they are?
Yeah. I think that the easiest way to describe values um is it's on the underlining of your why, right? Like we talk a lot about like what is your why? And the interesting thing to me, Richard, is if I turned around and asked you, what are your values? Could you name them?
Oh, good question.
And that's like a hypothetical question. I think your response is what most people would think, right? Like most
Mhm.
people say, like, I have values, I have strong values.
Yeah,
But when you start talking about, like, well, what are your values?
right.
There's a
It
pause.
There was a pause because they're sort of in the air, but I can't really pull them down right now. I have them,
Mhm.
I understand what the why is underneath my why, but I can't right now pull those down into one or two or three or four words.
Yeah, absolutely. Your values are what show up on your calendar, and they show up in your relationships, and they show up in
Mhm.
what you're making time for. And it should be driving the decisions in your life. Should be. I think many times we, again, sort of have this idea of we know what our values are, but if we can't articulate them,
Right,
um,
right.
you're making decisions in a way that may not align to how you feel and how you show up in the world each and every day. And if you don't mind, can I talk a little bit about like how I got to this point?
Please, absolutely. Want to hear
So
about
it was, and we've talked about failure before, right? So
it.
I started noticing that with clients, I had clients who were not succeeding on their goals that they made, right? Like we went through like the 5D
Mhm.
process of, and I always get these wrong. So I wrote down like define, discover, dream, design, deliver, like going through that process, dream big, like let's define these goals. And these are people who were very driven. They had a very strong sense of what their goals were. But even talking all of that through, making a plan together, that again, they're driving, that accountability, they weren't meeting it. And I was like, what is going on with these people? Like, what is going on with these people? What's going on with my coaching? What is happening here in general? And I was like, you know what? Maybe it's that why question. Maybe we're not digging in deep enough to that why.
Yeah.
And that really didn't seem like it either. And so I was like, what is going on here? And I took a step back and I was thinking about I've led teams where we have successfully hit our goals. So what is the difference there? Right? Like those goals are really well communicated, but it's a group of people that have different backgrounds, skill set, ages, like a diverse group of people, but
Mhm.
we're able to come together to hit these goals. So what's the difference?
Yeah.
And as I thought about it, I was like, the organization has a very explicit mission and vision.
Okay.
They have a very explicit set of values. And for the people who bought into those values, we were able to come together as a team and execute the goals.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and I will say that people that I've managed who struggle, and it's not skill set, it's attitude. And they don't align with the values. They don't believe in the underlying principles of what we're doing and what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know if I mentioned it here before, but I work in fundraising.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe in what you do, it's really hard to ask money from
Yeah.
people and to join you, right?
Yeah, I can imagine.
Um, and so that's how I got to that point. That's when I was like, you know what? I think we need to get back to underneath of the why, those values. And so I started this and people can go on my website. I have resources, but if you Google it, just Google like a values list and look through it. And it's
Mhm.
really interesting that these lists are like 50 to 100 values of typical
Sure.
values. I would recommend Brene Brown's. Um, and so that's how it started. It
Mhm.
was just like, why is this not happening? And when we started going through values together and starting from that point, it
Mhm.
helped align goals more clearly. And the processes under those goals, aligning to those values, this is what I'm willing to do and what I'm not willing to do. This is what I'm
Got
willing to make time for and not willing to make time for. And so it got so much further than motivation. It really was more about the discipline. And I think the other thing about this that I really appreciate about the values exercise
it.
is
Mhm.
that let's take something that almost everybody has some experience with, right? Like, I want to get healthy. Okay, great. Let's break that into some goals. I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week. I'm going to eat in and cook 5 nights a week. I'm going to run a half marathon. I'm going to lose 15 pounds. Okay, cool. Those are all goals that we can work toward and, have smart metrics and all of that.
Yep.
What is the value behind that?
Ah.
And so many of us, we all get super excited on January 1. Like, I love a New Year's resolution, right? Like, I love them. I know some people don't, but we fall off because we don't understand what we're really trying to do. And
Mm.
your body is clocking it with that motivation. The
Mhm.
reality is, for me, like self-care is, I wouldn't say one of my values, it's underneath the core of freedom. I want to have like freedom is a value of mine, and
Yeah.
that shows up in different ways in my life. And one of the ways that freedom shows up in my life is my alarm going off at 4:45 every morning,
Mm.
getting ready to run at 5:30 in the morning because I want the freedom to use my body the way I want to, and running allows me to do that. And that shows up in making decisions like eating. And it shows up in the way of me saying, like, you know what, I'm fine being a few pounds heavier because I want the freedom to have flexibility when I'm on the road to eat whatever I want. Right.
Mhm.
So it's easier to make those decisions when I understand what's behind it. Um, and so when motivation wanes, you
Mm.
have that core of your being underneath of these goals and understanding why you want to do what you want to do. And frankly, sometimes people say, like, I want to get healthy, and that's not actually what they want to do.
Right,
Like,
exactly. There's a lot underneath that desire to get healthy that's
mhm.
really driving them to make a decision. It sounds like they just don't have the language to put behind that.
Yes. Yes. And I think the other piece of this too is we're talking about people who are very successful in life, right? Like just average people who are successful.
Mhm.
And when you start talking about it, their value actually may be family, that they want to be healthy to be with their family.
Mhm.
And so, you know what? You don't actually need to go to the gym 5 days a week. How about you go on family walks after dinner?
Right.
How about you incorporate your kids into making dinner with you and focusing on, like, I don't know, healthier choices if you're eating out all the time or whatever,
Mhm.
whatever.
Mhm.
That looks a lot different than I have to lose 15 pounds. I have to show up to the gym. I have to
Yeah.
run a half
Mhm.
marathon. Those are two totally different things going on.
Yeah.
Um, and again, I think it's like it's really understanding what's important to you.
Mhm.
The other piece of this too, and we've sort of talked about it, is just like we don't sit down and think about our values that often, I don't think we actually sit down and think about what's meaningful to us. We think about that generic goal that's just out in the world.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and again, going to the why beneath the why.
Mhm.
You know, and I wanna go back and talk
Yeah,
about motivation for just a second,
yeah,
where, again, it waxes and wanes, and it sounds like the more you understand what you truly value, that gives you a more solid foundation to really achieve the things that you wanna achieve.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about your half marathon, right? What's underneath of that? What's
Oh,
underneath all of those miles, all of that pain? What's underneath of it?
You know what it is? Having an adventure.
Mhm.
I think a lot of times people want to run to, there's a community aspect to it.
Yeah.
I was out with, got 20,000 people running this. And there's definitely a community aspect when you're running with strangers,
Mhm.
you know, but there is also a part of me that, wanted an adventure. I hadn't run a half marathon in 6 years. And so I wanted to, there was curiosity behind that. What would it be like to be 6 years older, maybe a little bit slower, and what I wanted out of that wasn't just, to lose weight or to look better, but to really dig in and have that adventure and being curious about what is it gonna feel like? How
Mhm.
am I gonna feel? What is it gonna look like?
Yep.
So that was it.
And that's I love that you talked about what it's gonna feel like, because adventure can take on lots of different ideas, right? Like going to the Grand Canyon, or,
Mhm. Yeah.
it could be for some people, like, an adventure could be going to dinner by themselves, right?
Mm.
And it shifts your mindset of how you're going to approach things throughout life.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I know that I do with clients is like, okay, so let's say you want to write a book. How is it going to feel? How do you want to feel? And when you can start to really envision that, it it really does change how you approach things. So I
Mhm.
love the idea of, like, adventure to you is feeling, like, open to all the possibilities, and that could be a race, it could be different things.
Mhm.
Um, and that's, again, I think is cool about the values is it shows up differently for different people and allows you to approach your goals with, like, a rainbow of colors versus black and
Mhm.
white of, like, "I need to do this to get here."
Mhm. And, and speaking of that, a lot of times, when we map out our goals,
Mhm.
you know, you're running a half marathon or a marathon, you've got a training plan and, you want to stick to that training plan as much as you possibly can. And so you get into this region of rigidity
Mhm.
and, you know, you have to be a little bit more supple with it
Yep.
and not be so, anal as
Yep.
it were. And, I've got to follow this plan no matter what.
Yeah.
There are gonna be days where, you're just not gonna be able to.
Yeah.
You have to go into work early, or maybe, your foot's hurting a little bit more.
Yeah.
Then you have to figure out, "Okay, how am I gonna make this work now? Because I don't have the where" I'm off my plan as it,
Sure.
and so and this actually leads me to another question
Mhm.
for the tie to that is, when your values get tested, what happens?
That's a good question. I think when your values get tested, that's when you actually know if you're aligned or not. So,
Mm.
and I also think it's a guidepost, right? So when you are tested, because we said it last time, life is hard, right? Like,
Yeah,
it could be the job layoff, it could be an injury, it could be, I thought I really wanted to do this thing and I don't.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I think when it gets tested, you go back to that idea of like, well, what was the point of this to begin with? And one
Mhm,
thing that I will say is that your values can shift over time. Like, don't be so rigid of like, you know, um, self-care is like really important to me. And 15 years later, self-care is still one of my top 5 values.
mhm,
And I'll talk about that in a second too, sort of
yeah,
alignment of values. But when they're tested, that is where we typically say motivation, right? It's your discipline, it's your motivation, it's all underneath. And you can go back to that core of, well, why am I doing this?
mhm,
And if you take the idea of like family is one of my core values, are there other ways I can do this? Are there other ways I can approach it? And maybe it doesn't look like what I thought it was going to look like, but am I still going to get the end result ultimately?
mhm.
And so I think that when you're tested on your values, not only do you find out, is this actually your value? Is it
Yeah,
meaningful to
right.
you?
Mhm,
But it's where you start to get really creative within yourself and seeing all of those possibilities in front of you versus, like you said, this prescriptive plan. Um, and
mhm,
what if so? I like to work in 28-day cycles, and like
Okay.
people are going to roll their eyes when I say this, but it's okay. I do them in lunar cycles. I love astronomy and I
Okay.
love going out and looking at the sky. And I think there's something really nice about saying, you know what? I have a 6-month plan.
Okay.
And within 28 days, I'm setting goalposts for myself. And there's checkpoints within that of like, what's working, what isn't working, how am I feeling, how do I need to adjust, what things do I need to release, what things do I need to bring in, and then continue within 28 days. Maybe
Mhm.
we talked about this before, like I always think things are going to take less time than they actually do. And so it's
Mm.
like, no, you know what? I need to build out a little bit extra time. Let me bump this back. Let me move this forward. I've got this injury that I wasn't expecting or a trip that I wasn't expecting. It allows you to have that flexibility when you're not so rigid again on like this has it's fine to set a deadline. It's fine to have goals or processes underneath of that goal. But when you give yourself that flexibility, you're not moving away from the end desire, but it allows you to get there in different ways. And you may learn something along the way as well.
I mean, there's, I think it feels like there is a combination of, I wouldn't say rigidity, but a definite plan
Hmm.
and flexibility in how you walk your clients through
Yeah.
a 6-month plan.
Yeah.
And the lunar cycle is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
And it's like, is there some particular
Yes. Yeah.
uh, posting
So,
that?
yeah, I just threw that out there and then didn't really talk about it. So, essentially, on a new moon, that's when I like to think about like dreaming big. Like the night
Okay.
is empty and full of stars, right? And then
Right.
on a full moon, it's sort of that time of like everything's illuminated. Look at what is working, what isn't working. And then you've got like the quarter moons in between.
Okay.
And so you've got to build up to the full moon and then sort of a release back to the new moon. And it's this cycle where you can build up, you can rest, you can plan, you can execute, you can
Mhm.
adjust. And I like to go outside and look up and think about what I'm doing every couple weeks, right? Like so on a first quarter moon, I like to think about okay, I'm like doing things, keep the momentum going, and it's just sort of a carved out time where it's quiet. I can go outside, look up if it's not cloudy, and just sort of be with those thoughts. On a full moon, same thing. Go outside. It's beautiful.
Mhm.
It reconnects me with nature, and really say like, hey, what's working and what do I need to get rid of
Yeah.
as we're
And
going to go back to approaching that new moon of, all right, let's see where we are. Let's make those adjustments and move forward. Um, Something that you asked as well with when your values are challenged,
yeah.
part of the reason that I start with values is it's you focused. It's not anyone else focused. So
Yeah.
even as I'm saying this thing that you're
Yeah.
probably like, okay, maybe it's a little kooky dukes, it's me focused. It has nothing to do with anybody else. And if people are interested in that, cool. If they're not, totally fine. It brings it back to you. You're
Mhm.
not worried about the noise around you. This is your journey and
Mhm.
you have decided this is what I'm rooted in. And I think that's so important in like this world where I feel like we have this constant hum of you need to be more productive and you have to be meeting these
Absolutely.
standards.
Absolutely.
And the
Yeah.
reality is it's about you. It's about how you want to eat up this life and what that looks like.
Yeah.
And so
E
when you
e
can bring it back to yourself, you're not worried about like, well, this is what Richard wants me to do, right?
exactly. It sounds like your work when it comes to values helps people get back to that root itself.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And actually, the way that I do it is a little backwards. So I like people to tell me, like, what are your goals? What are your big goals and ambitions? Like, walk me through that. And then I ask why. And that's usually when people start getting stuck. And I like to go through that because I want people to sort of understand where they are. And then we
Mhm.
go back to the values exercise, move through that, and readjust those goals. Sometimes those goals look totally different after we've done the values exercise because again, um, many times it's externally based or people are just sort of like on autopilot and not thinking about it from their perspective.
Mhm. And how difficult is it to get them out of that autopilot?
I think again, because we're rooted in that value of bringing it back to them of like, this is why we're doing this. So if you
Mhm.
still feel this way at your core, let's move forward from here. Um, or let's adjust. If you're not feeling that at your core, let's go back and figure out what's going on there. So the exercises that you'll see online or the lists online are like 50 to 100 values. And so what I do is I'll say, Richard, go through and circle every value that you identify with. And usually people will do about 20 to 25. Like,
Okay.
awesome.
Yeah.
Get that down to 10 to 15.
Mm.
And it's a little harder, but they can do it. And you'll start seeing like similarities, right?
Mhm.
And then the hard part, the really hard part is get it down to 3 to 5, preferably 3. And
Okay.
that's really, really hard. And people spend a lot of time and energy on that, myself included. And sometimes, like I said, it shifts. Sometimes, myself included, you're surprised at what your top 3 to 5 are. You're like, oh, I thought it was family, but it's actually not. It's independence, right? Or whatever, you know?
Mhm.
And so when we start from that place, when we go back and evaluate our goals from that place, it really does clear a lot of things up. And in the accountability portion of the work that we do,
Mhm.
you're going to see, look, we all have tough weeks. This is not Pollyanna, really what's at your core and what's going to make you follow through. Because the reality is we've all been in this situation. We say like, I really want to do this thing, and then you don't, and it's your body clocking it. Like it is true.
Right.
I will find anything else to
Right.
do when I don't want to do something. Like I will
Yeah.
clean out the
I'm there
cabinets,
with you.
like I will come
I'm
out
there
to
with
Jersey and clean out your cabinets. Like I will go on lots of
you.
side quests, and your brain and your body will clock it.
Mhm.
And that should just be a signal of like, wait, what am I doing right now? Why is this so difficult?
And I wanna talk about that for a second where sometimes I notice in myself and other people where
Mhm,
our bodies are sort of we're disembodied in a way from our values sometimes,
mhm.
what we do. And how do you help people, like, literally and figuratively re-embody their values?
Yeah. I think it's that, if I'm understanding the question correctly, I think it's really that envisioning yourself. What does it feel like?
Yeah,
What does this feel
right.
like? Like, close your eyes, sit in it, and if
Mhm.
your goal is to, again, write a book, okay, great. What does that feel like? What does it look like? What are you wearing? Who's around you?
Mhm.
Who
Mhm.
do you hope is reading that book? And when you hear from them, what do you want to feel? And it makes it so much more real. Think about value almost as like a flame. And like the
Okay.
more that you're feeding it, like, are all of those things going to feed that flame?
Mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Do you often feel that people need external permission to do something like write a book?
Mm.
That they've got this idea in them and, you know, they don't have their own internal permission to do that.
Yeah, 100%. And
Mhm.
I think it's for a lot of reasons, right? I actually think, and this isn't a fully formed thought, but I'll share it here. I think many times we're scared of our own success. And I
Ooh,
think the reason that we're scared of our own success is because we change in this process
yeah,
and you're exposed in this
yeah,
process. And you know what? You might fail. You've got to move through that and what success looks like, because success can't happen without failure and success can't
right,
happen without change.
right.
And
Yeah,
I say this to myself all the time: what got you here isn't going to get you to where you want to go.
absolutely right. You're
And in
absolutely
your work, I mean, you can talk about that with your clients. Like, that change that has to happen
yeah,
must feel tremendous sometimes.
it feels daunting and very vulnerable
Mhm,
because if you've been doing a particular job or if you've been in a particular industry for decades, sort of all you know,
mhm.
right? And, you know, circumstances might call for you to do something different,
Yep.
do something and maybe be somebody completely different.
Yeah.
And that is scary, especially for adults, when you're working along somebody who is supporting you and sees what you are capable of, then that helps you gain confidence, the confidence to make the move, even though you're scared to death of it.
Yeah.
You got support. And like you said, you can't have success without failure.
Yeah.
And is it really failure or is it just information gathering?
Right. Is this
And
just data?
yeah, exactly. What is one small way that they can start realigning themselves?
Yeah. Um, I think they already did it. They've identified that they're out of alignment. So, like,
Oh,
pat yourself on the back for that. Something feels
mm,
off, and you take instead of powering through, you're taking a minute and you're like, actually, you know what? This isn't aligning with
mm,
who I am or who I want to be. So that's, I think, step number one. Step number two is I would just look at the list. You don't even have to identify three things, but look at the list and see, like, yeah, these are the things that kind of resonate with me. And just like, what's the one that pops out to you? Forget what I said about identify your top 3 to 5. What's one that just pops out to you, right? Like, just play with it a little bit.
mhm,
And I love curiosity. It's actually one of my values. And okay, let me take that. And as I go through my week, let me see where it's showing up. Let me
mm,
see where I'm lighting up in the week. And is it aligning to those things? And I think if you can start doing that on a daily basis as you remember it, like life gets busy, right?
right.
If you're listening and you're like, oh, this is kind of interesting, let me see, just pick one value and see where it's showing up in your life and how you're feeling.
Mm,
And for those moments where you feel out of alignment, maybe look at that list again and be like, it doesn't really fit into any of these other things that resonated with me. So can you make an adjustment there? Look,
yeah.
I have to submit receipts. It's the worst thing in the world to do, right? I hate it. I don't like
Uh-huh,
doing it. I
yeah.
put it off to the last minute.
Mhm,
And so if
mm,
I approach it as service, which is another value that's important to me, it's a service to the people that are helping me clear these receipts. That's a very different attitude than like, oh, I hate doing these. Why do I have to do it? So
mhm,
again, even in things that we have to do that we don't like, maybe we could just set a little bit. And it goes back to that, like, what's important to me and makes me me and how I want to show up in the day. Um, so that's a really long-winded way of saying, like, look at that list. Please look at that list
mm.
because again, you'll be surprised at some of the things on there. You're like, oh, or like, oh. um, and whatever is sort of popping out to you, see where it's showing up in your life. And if you can even do this, do it on your notes app, write it on a notepad. Like you can journal if you're a journaler. I know you are. I am. Um, just start keeping track of it. One sentence a day. I found curiosity in XYZ today and how it showed up for me. And I think what you'll start seeing is you're going to just start incorporating it more and more.
Mm,
And the more that you do that, the more alignment you are with yourself and what's important to you. And that's when you start changing your calendar. And that's when you start changing how you're showing up for work or relationships or yourself. And think about that. And it goes back to we've had this conversation before, tiny shifts.
exactly,
Tiny
exactly.
shifts.
That's what I was just thinking. It's like, I love how you broke it down, you you know, you made it a reframe,
Mhm.
and you made it, you chunked it down enough that it's manageable. All you have to do is just, like, 1 sentence a day.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's it. Yeah,
Make it eat, like the old Staples commercials that, press the easy button.
that was easy. The thing with all of what we've been talking about with coaching, the goal is not perfection, ever,
Oh, 100
ever.
100% right.
And I
If
think so many people go into it with this idea of like, it's gotta be right every single time, and the messy is really where the good stuff happens.
is it's where the juicy stuff is, and, Brene Brown says, we're not looking to be right, we're looking to get it right, and I think that's the thing that we have, that all of us have to remember is that we wanna get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Richard, I think you just wrapped it up perfectly. was
That
great. That was
was.
like tied it up with the perfect bow. So if people are looking, to do some value work, like I said, there's resources on my website. I would actually recommend Brene Brown. Her list is really good. And just sit with it for a little bit and see how you feel. Like it's as simple as that. Like take 15 minutes, show up for yourself for like 15 minutes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
15 minutes. That's all it takes for you.
Yeah.
And you'll show up better for others.
Yeah. Absolutely. Great.
Cool.
We solved it.
Yeah. Again, we solved the world's problems.
Amazing. Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Until next time.
Until next time,
If people want to find Richard, where can they find you?
I am at richardtaliaferro.com and also on Instagram as well. Instagram.com/RICHTALI. We'll see pictures from my half marathon triumph.
Yes. And you do great stuff on LinkedIn too.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn as Richard Taliaferro. Just look for me there.
Great. And I'm megdeford.com. Super easy. So awesome. We'll see you next time.
All right. Take care, everybody.